Top-secret Pentagon research projects have long been the stuff of conspiracy theories, but some of them are real. They actually happened, and they're worth knowing about. For example, this week, in response to a Freedom of Information Act request, the Defense Intelligence Agency disclosed that it had, in fact, funded research into UFO-related technologies. This would include the invisibility cloak, warp drives, and anti-gravity. The DIA spent $22 million from 2007 to 2005. The program apparently was initiated by then Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid of Nevada. Nick Pope is one of the world's experts in this. He wants to investigate UFOs to the British government. He joins us tonight. Nick, thanks for coming on. It does sound like the core assumption of this research was that UFOs are real. UFOs are real. UFOs are real. UFOs are real.
UFOs are real.
Yes, it really does. This is something of a bombshell, I think. For months, the Defense Intelligence Agency and the DoD have been trying to spin this story as, well, it's just about aerospace weapons threats. But now we have this document which shows quite clearly what they were looking into. And it's nothing to do with airplanes. It's as you say, anti-gravity, invisibility cloaking, wormholes, and warp drive. Some of this is about space travel.
These ideas are derived from objects that the U.S. government observed in space, presumably?
Well, we still don't know much of the story. We really only have a handful of papers and documents on this. I got this from the DIA's Office of Corporate Communications, and we're still trying to digest what this means. There are 38 papers that they produced under this contract, defense intelligence reference documents, looking at things which frankly sound like science fiction, and yet they're not. Our tax dollars have been spent on looking at this, and you know there's one of these papers which absolutely is critical. It's looking at something called the Drake Equation, and the Drake Equation is supposed to be a way that astronomers can calculate how many intelligent civilizations there might be in our galaxy. Well, look, if this is not a UFO program, if this is just about Russian and Chinese aircraft, what the heck are they looking at that for?
Why wouldn't the U.S. government just say, I don't think it'd be especially controversial, we believe it's possible that there are other forms of life in the universe and we're looking into it. Why hide that?
Well, I hope that's exactly what they will now say. I think we know that this letter, which I've now acquired and which has been released under the Freedom of Information Act, we know that this went to Congress. We know that the Armed Services Committee is looking at this very seriously. They're also looking into those videos that we've talked about before of the Navy jets chasing UFOs. So I think the real question is what's going on behind the scenes? And I'm hoping that in the next few weeks, maybe months, Congress is going to say more about this. The Armed Services Committee will speak out, and maybe we'll have public hearings at which all this will be revealed.
So former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, who was for many years in a position to have access to this information for certain, has basically said in public, I know a lot, I think this is real, but he hasn't gone farther than that. Have you spoken to him? Has anyone spoken to him?
I've not spoken to him personally, but I've seen some of his interviews. I've seen his statements. I've seen one of his documents. And for anyone who's trying to say, well, this isn't really about UFOs, it's about next generation aircraft, missiles, and drones. No, it isn't. Harry Reid has made it perfectly clear. This is about anomalous objects in our airspace, and call them UFOs, whatever you like. You know, we take them seriously. The government has been looking at this.
Why all the lying? That's what piques my interest. It always piques my interest. Nick Pope, thank you for all the work you do on this. The non-crazy, sober, responsible work you do, and I appreciate it.
Up front now, the former Pentagon military official who ran the covert government program up until this last November, Luis Elizondo. Luis, thank you so much for your time tonight. I mean, first, tell us what the purpose of the program was and why it was so secretive.
Sure. The purpose of the program, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, was really designed to do just that. From a national security perspective, identify those things that we see, whether We see them electro-optically, we see them with radar, we see them as eyewitness reports, through a myriad of different ways and avenues that we receive the information, and try to ascertain and determine if that information is a potential threat to national security, in a nutshell.
So what did you find?
Well, we found a lot. I think it's probably been a little bit mischaracterized in some of the social media you see and what people put out, because a lot of times when we don't have a lot of information, we tend to fill in those gaps with what we think is logical. And there's still, by the way, a lot we really don't know. I think what's important is that we have identified some very, very interesting anomalous type of aircraft. Let's call them aircraft. Things that don't have any obvious flight surfaces, any obvious forms of propulsion, and maneuvering in ways that include extreme maneuverability beyond, I would submit, the healthy G-forces of a human or anything biological, hypersonic velocities, low observability, positive lift, again, seemingly in defying the laws of aerodynamics. So people
so do
are
you
talking.
Think, I mean, I know, but do you believe, when you get that Navy pilot saying what he said, do you think that that was, a UFO? To obviously, I don't have any other word to use, or that, or something else?
Sure, that's a great question. Keeping in mind, it's not just the pilot's testimony on an observation. Sure, when someone comes to you who's in charge of a multi-million-dollar weapon platform, who maintains a top-secret security clearance, who is paid and trusted by this country to go fight wars and to fly over cities with live munitions, and by the way, they're trained observers with millions of dollars invested in their training,
yep.
I would submit to you it's pretty compelling. But on top of that, it's not just the eyewitness testimony. It is actual electro-optical data and radar returns. It's also people like radar operators and air traffic controllers. So I think the discussion should be maybe a little bit broader than that. I think people are focusing just on 2 videos coming from a set of F-18s when really it's a lot more than that.
So recently, I guess it was in October, astronomers spotted what they say could be the first interstellar asteroid. You see it there, kind of that strange shape from beyond the solar system. What do you see when you look at that? Well,
Ms. Burnett, I have to admit to you, when I ran this program, I was fundamentally looking at, my colleagues looking at 2 things.
Yeah.
What is it and how does it work? We have deliberately stayed away from going down the rabbit hole of who's behind the wheel and what are their intentions.
Yep.
Because a lot of people have a lot of feelings towards that and are very emotional about that. And what I wanted to do was to allow the data to speak for itself and then use that data to inform leadership, senior DoD leadership, about the potential threat that these type of technologies pose to national security, especially over any type of controlled airspace that we might have. So I'm not trying to be evasive in any way or vague with your answer, but
yeah. Well,
I think there's a lot of possibilities.
Look, and I know you think it's important. I know you think that the government didn't take the threat seriously enough. So let me just ask you point blank the question. Do you believe that life from somewhere else, while you ran this program, came here, visited, observed?
I will tell you unequivocally that through the observation, scientific methodologies that were applied to look at this phenomena, that these aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory, nor in any foreign inventory that we are aware of.
So I know you're being clear, but I mean, the answer is yes.
I can't speak on behalf of the government. Obviously, I'm not in the U.S. government anymore. My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone, whatever that means.
Amanda Clark writes and says, if the government did have contact, why would they not share it with us? I know it starts from a conspiracy theory place, but I just wonder if there would be any logical reason to keep the info from us. Good question.
Yeah. Is the government hiding? Go ahead, Ben, tell me. I mean, if you can. I mean, maybe I'm not clear to hear this.
Are they listening? I don't know.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, this is a perfect question, and you know, I've pointed this out to people before. You know, I've asked people like, why exactly, you know, for the conspiracy theorist, why is it that you think that people would be, the government would make all this, and not just one government, of course. We're talking an international consortium spanning many administrations and countries and decades to all suppress this evidence, and it just doesn't make sense. And people say, well, you know, it's because, you know, if people really thought that aliens were contacting us, then, you know, then there'd be mass panic. And of course, the reply to that is, but if you look at polls, many people already think that aliens have contacted us. So that has not happened. So that explanation, well, there would be mass panic. No. A lot of you, like as you said, you know, depending on what poll you look at, between, you know, a quarter and a third of them already think that. So that clearly hasn't happened. They don't have an answer.
They're still going to work every day, you know.
Yeah, but couldn't you make the argument just because somebody might think that it happened is very different from being presented with hard evidence? That could create the fear. Like some people think Trump will be a great president. If he becomes president, they might be like, holy shit, what do we do?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, there may be something to that. I mean, Ben, it's okay to say, well, I believe that it's true, but if the government were to come out tomorrow, and after all, I mean, Hillary said something on a late-night talk show about this, that she was going to get to the bottom of this. I must confess, I don't understand that, because if the government powers that be who can get to the bottom of it, presumably, say, well, yes, we have the aliens freeze-dried and stacked up at Area 51. If they say that, you know, everybody would go nonlinear. But if they say, no, we don't have any evidence of alien visitation, everybody would say, they're lying to us. So I don't see how it solves anything. But suppose if they did do it, I mean, do you think that people would be rioting in the streets? We're not going to work today. We're going to riot in the streets because they've got aliens.
No, this is absurd. I mean, again, the government is in a no-win situation, because the thing is that even if the government came totally clean tomorrow and declassified everything and said, look, here's what's going on, you know, at Area 51, here's you know, Air Force bases, the fact is that the conspiracy theorists wouldn't believe them. They would assume there's another layer of the cover-up. So, and this is inherent, of course, in conspiracy theory thinking, is that there's no way to disprove it, because anything you offer them as counter evidence is taken as part of the conspiracy.
Yeah,
so,
you're part of the cover-up, Ben.
Yeah, there's no way to argue with these people, because, you know, it's like, well, anything you say. So, you know, so again, that's one of the problems, is that, you know, when from the government point of view, no matter what they say, people aren't going to believe it. So, you know, let them wonder what's at Area 51. Who cares?
Yeah, they don't seem to care at Area 51.